Hi, this is Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio. So this is week 4 of the Spiral Scroll. Now, at the moment, my internet is not working right. It went down before we had the big storm, and it's just not recovered yet. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm not sure, therefore, when this will be up. This was going to be a bit late anyway, but there we go. So week 4, I've got my 3 weeks here. That was last week's, the Fortitude. I'm loving the challenge of this project because I'm almost working with the two sides and looking at how they're coming together. I've not doodled on this yet, although I see this bird actually in this bit again. But I was trying not to think too much about that. But yeah, so we'll see how that doodle comes out when the time comes. But I want to work on today's card. I've pulled this one, slightly different colour. But because, as I've said before, I'd kind of hemmed myself in or got myself into a corner with the way these were shaping up, I want to try and break that a little bit now and get back to, I was thinking about different things to join these cards together. And of course, because they're all scraps, they're all different shapes, I never quite know how they're going to line up. That one's pretty much same size top and bottom. But there was a couple of things I'd pulled out that I'd like to incorporate this week. One is this, which is from the Honesty plant. It's one half of it. It's obviously already dropped all its seeds, and I'd like to incorporate that somehow. But I've got these things that, they're plastic, onions come in them. Particularly like that dark, although I like the orange because orange is my favourite colour. So I'm thinking about maybe using this as a bit of a hinge, but I don't know, maybe not a huge piece, maybe just a little in here to help join it. So I will leave the joining till the end, and I'm just going to start on this. So I'm probably going to go quiet now. I will either do a bit of a voice over or I will put some comments. There may be music, there may not be, but I'll put it in the description if there is. So yeah, be back to work on this and then we can see where we are after that. Okay, so I'm just going to do a bit of a voiceover. I'd looked out this very grungy page that I think I'm going to use as a kind of base layer on my card here, and I also just happened to see this little scrap. Obviously used it for something before, I've punched pieces out of it, and I just thought that the Honesty seed head would sit quite nicely within that. So that's kind of the idea that I'm playing with at the moment. I'd enjoyed the kind of simplicity of last week's card, of just using those very basic scraps, and I thought, yeah, I think I want to go along a kind of similar line this week. There's something about these cards, or pages, whatever we want to call them, just not making them too complicated, just kind of feeling the way through each one. So all I'm going to do is to glue the back of the card here, the piece of watercolour paper, and then I'll just stick the page down and onto it. So this is just an old dictionary page. It's got it's acrylic ink on it. By the looks of it, it's a kind of mix of sepia and indigo that I've probably used just to mop up ink previously. So again, just using the bone folder just to smooth it out, and I think I'll probably do that on the other side as well, just to make sure that there is good contact. Once that's done, I'm just going to go round the edges and just try and tear off that bit of paper to the same shape as the card itself. So I will spend a little bit of time just going back and forward, looking at how it will join, where it will join, before I put the next kind of pieces on or decide what to do next. Feeling that I want to join it on that side, although I do double check on the back to see if I would rather put it onto the back. So just trying it different ways. And as I'm doing this, I also just look at how I might use that onion netting. Look at that kind of deep red colour, which I like, but I'm really drawn to the orange today. As I said earlier, that's because orange is my favourite colour, and I think it actually goes nice as a kind of contrast to some of the other colours that I'm using. So I'm just going to cut a piece of that. I do decide eventually to kind of double it over just to give it a bit of added strength. So just looking now at how I might add it, and again which side. And you know, my preference is for putting it on this side and looking through it from the other side, if you know what I mean. There I am, just doubling it over because I do feel that that will be a bit stronger. So, you know, I do spend a bit of time looking at how that might fit in. Do I want it under there? Do I want that on top of it? Really just kind of offering all of it up, having a look and try and decide on what I want. And it's kind of this part of the process that can take me a little bit of time, because I do like to kind of feel my way through it. I mean, sometimes there are things where I can get on and just stick things down, but something like this I just wanted to make certain, because obviously apart from anything else I want to make sure that the two pieces of card are well stuck together. Now, because I'm doing the voiceover, I can actually do a bit more editing and cut out some of those bits where I am just sitting looking or just tearing bits. It can take quite a time, but let me know what you prefer. Would you prefer to see absolutely everything, or are you happy for little bits to be cut out where it's quite obvious what I'm doing? So here again, just looking at it in different ways, and again looking at how the seed head might fit in. So at this point I decided just to darken up those edges just so that the kind of stark white on them would not be seen. And I've now flipped it over and I'm looking at it from the back, and I've decided that what I need to do is, rather than working on the single page first, I want to attach these two pieces together now, because I think that will make it easier for taking it forward. Again, just looking at what way I'm going to do it, which is up, which is down. But eventually I take the new card and attach it to the back of the previous card. So I'm looking to have as little kind of contact between the two pieces as possible. Because of the odd shape, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but that's okay. So I'm really just putting a bit top and bottom where the cards will stick together. And my intention is that the onion bag will actually give a bit of added strength to it when it's in place. So I've put glue on first section, and now just putting another bit on the page that I'm going to attach to it. So just getting that into place, just moving it a fraction here and there until I get it as I want it to be. Gonna flip it over the other side to take a look at it. So the gap's quite small, slightly smaller than I was intending, but it's okay. And then I'm going to start looking at how I add the string again. You see I'm still playing about with it just a little bit. So I gave that just a minute or so just to allow it time to kind of start to stick a bit. And here I've got my other scrap of paper and my piece of netting, and again just looking at how I'm going to do this. And I decide that initially I will stick down the scrap, but what I'll do is I'll leave this end open a little bit because I'm going to put it on top of the onion netting. So I just spread the glue with my finger a little bit, and then I put this into place. Just making sure that end isn't fully stuck down yet. And then again, I'll just use the bone folder to make sure that it's well adhered. And this also just helps to push out any extra glue. So I've pushed to the side a bit of paper from last week's page, and what I'm doing now is just putting on some 3-in-1 glue again, and I'm actually going to glue the onion netting into place. So allowing that to run the full length of that card, and then I will do the same on the other side because I want it to be firmly attached to both cards. And I thought that probably the 3-in-1 glue would be really the best for this. It's a good strong glue and it dries reasonably quickly. So once I've got that in place, I'll just take this, just looking at the kind of shape that I want it. It is kind of springy, so I can pull it into shape just a little bit. And then I'm just going to literally press it into the glue. And it actually grabbed quite quickly. I was quite pleased about that. Grabbed well. So you'll see that obviously now it takes part of the design of this week into last week's as well. And I'm enjoying that aspect of this project that, you know, although I think a card is complete, the way that I do the next card, it can actually kind of change it a little. Now all I'm going to do is take a bit more glue to glue down the edge of the paper scrap, and I've just used a 3-in-1 glue for that again, and I'll just press that into place. So just going to take a look at it from both sides now. And I like that you can just see that little bit through there. Just adds something else to this project as it kind of grows organically. And I decided to leave that bit at the top just sticking up. I quite like that as well. So for the seed head, I've decided to use some gel matte medium to glue this into place, and all I do is I use my finger with the gel matte medium and I'll just put it into that little kind of circular area, and then all I'm going to do is gently put that into place. Now I've used dried leaves, dried flower heads, etc. over the years, and it's amazing how they last. There's always the thing that unless you kind of encase them in something, you know, if air gets to them, they could actually still deteriorate, but that doesn't concern me. Again, it just makes it even more organic in the sense that it might change again in future. So again, just trying to gently push it down to make sure that I get any lumps of glue out. I decided just to use our glitter glue to try and glue the little bit that's at the top, the little pointy bit at the top of the seed head, and also the kind of stalk bit here, just to keep it in place. But again, you know, if that comes off in future, then it's fine. At this point I decide to add my word, and I do that off camera, and the word I used this week is juxtapose. Again, it's just a word that's been in my mind this past week, and I thought it fitted well with this card in terms of the juxtaposing, if I can even say it, juxtaposing the kind of seed head, that very organic natural seed head, along with the piece of plastic. So, you know, for me it worked in terms of recycling, upcycling, etc. So here I've got a piece of, previously I'd used that kind of gold thread, but you know, I'm feeling I want to go brighter. So I've got this kind of orange thread, and I'm just going to put a row of stitches kind of top and bottom. along, joining the two cards, again to just give it a bit of added strength. So just showing you what I'm going to do, to pierce some holes there. Now someone, and I can't remember who it was, but someone said after I pierced holes a couple of weeks ago, why not put something softer under that, and rather than just going directly into the craft mat, and it will pierce more easily. So yes, of course, that stuck in my mind. So I've just got a piece of cardboard here, and it made such a difference just pushing down into the softer surface. So just going to make a series of holes along the top. Yeah, you can just see them there. I think there's about 7 or something, and then I'm just going to do the same along the bottom. I decide just to take it slightly further along so that they're not running exactly opposite each other. And I kind of see this as just being a bit like mark making, but it's mark making with thread rather than with a pen. So after about 10 minutes of trying to thread my needle, I was eventually successful, and all I'm doing is kind of putting a double knot in the end of it, just so that it doesn't go straight through the hole. And I'm just going to start from the front facing side. And sorry, as I've said before, it's hard to actually sew on camera and stay in frame. And I do jag myself a couple of times because sometimes I'm looking to see if I'm in frame rather than watching what I'm doing with the needle. So I'm just going to work my way along there. It's hard to see some of the holes sometimes. Trying to feel my way, looking at it on the other side to find it. And I just go along to the end of that row. And that's it, looking from the back. But what I decide to do is actually to go back along through the same holes. So I think I kind of, I don't know if that's called a back stitch or what it's called, but it just made the line thicker, made it stand out more, and I thought would offer better strength for the two pieces being joined together. So doing this meant that I ended on the opposite side from where I started, so just going through that last hole there, which brings me out on the back, and all I do is I take the needle through it, I think a couple of times, just to try and tie it off rather than trying to put any other sort of knot in it. Just pulling it gently to make sure that I don't pull too hard and tear the card. And then I'll just cut that off. I then worked my way along the bottom section. This time when I come to do the over or whatever, the plastic, I actually lift the plastic a little bit so that the plastic will kind of sit partially on top of the thread rather than the thread being on top of the plastic. You see me just pulling those little bits that weren't glued down. They're sufficient there to be glued down to stay in place. So I was quite keen just to have some of it overlap the thread. And again, when I get to the end here, I will just go back the other way. And I then simply tie that off in the same way as before. So just taking a bit of a look at it now, I do like the way that it's joined together, but just feeling there's one more thing that I want to do. So I take my black Stabilo awl and I'm just going to go round the seed head with it, kind of down the stalk and down one side a little bit above. It's just creating a little bit of a shadow effect. I'll go along that scrap as well. And then all I'll do is spray some water just to the side and just use my paintbrush just to kind of activate the Stabilo oil. And I kind of do this a couple of times with the paintbrush. The first time I feel it's just a bit too heavy. So what I'll do in a moment or two is I take it again and just pull it out just a little bit further, just so there's not quite so much of a hard edge on it. That's me doing that now. So just softening that edge just a little bit more. Once I've done that, I then just take the Stabilo oil and just add a bit kind of to the bottom and to the top, just kind of darkening those edges just to make it makes the whole card, I think, stand out just a little bit more. And once that's done, that then is this card for this week. I never know whether to call them a card or a page or what, but you know what I mean anyway. So yeah, it's a little bit different. I keep seeing a face on that seed head. I don't know if it dries, or as it dries that might kind of disappear a bit. You see, I just take my finger there just to dab a little bit of that off. But I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased with the way the onion bag came out. I was keeping the bit of paper from last week off it so that it didn't stick right down. Liking the way the back's turning out. That's become as important as the front. It's like doing two projects in one. So thanks ever so much for watching. Do take care. Bye for now.